I'm actually with my name is Danielle, and I'm actually with the Instituto Superior de Agronomia, which is one of the universities within the University of Lisboa system. And like Veronica said, this study is on the effects of drought on tree growth in the montado system of Portugal, and using remote sensing tools. The montado, is this? There we go. The montado is a Portuguese woodland that is mainly characterized by the dominance of either cork oak or holm oak. And specifically, the montados are an agroforestry system that is experienced with a high level of land use and modifications. It is a socio-economically important system. It provides many ecosystem services, such as water regulation and carbon storage, food for grazing, and also provides a lot of goods such as cork and non-timber products. It's a heterogeneous landscape. The main variants are, for example, in the picture above, you see this more dense landscape. This has a lower level of human land use, and the dominant understory tends to be shrub communities. In the bottom picture, the other main variant are the pasture lands. These are more open, and the dominant understory tends to be herbaceous vegetation. In the last decades, we've seen some shifts in community composition as well as tree performance. And specifically, we've been seeing increasing trends of tree mortality in cork oak. And so we want to study these trends of mortality and try to understand these underlying causes. To do this, we'll be using a few different indices. The first is the Ndvi. This is the Normalized Difference Vegetation Index. This is a commonly used proxy of forest greenness. It uses the near infrared and red wavelengths. And this is quite commonly used. The picture on the right, this is for all the montado area in Portugal. This is just an example of Ndvi for 1 year. And while this measures greenness, we also want to look at the leaf area index, which can give us an indication of the photosynthetic biomass. The graph on the left is from Corey and Coombs, and this shows the relationship between LAI and Ndvi, which is a non-linear saturation relationship. This is for forests in Spain, and we can see that Ndvi tends to saturate at an LAI, a leaf area index value of about 3. And so what that means is that these Ndvi values that you see here above the saturation point, small changes are going to relate to much larger changes in LAI. Here on the right, this was a study done by Hausler in Portuguese woodlands. And the Ndvi values here were simulated using a radiative transfer model. And here they found the relationship is actually Ndvi saturating at an LAI of 2. So in our study, we would like to try to create these results using Ndvi values taken from Landsat and validate our results against these results, and also be able to relate our results on forest greening trends with photosynthetic biomass. To look at climate trends, we will be using SPEI, the Standard Precipitation Evapotranspiration Index. This is a really great drought index that can give us information about the onset, duration, and magnitude of drought conditions compared to the usual conditions of a site. This index is really great because it also incorporates temperature and not just precipitation into its results. It is also a multi-scalar index, so you can use this to calculate, for example, cumulative impacts of drought as well. This image is from the Spanish Council for Scientific Investigation. They have a really great global SPEI database online that you can easily access for your data. You can either download by points or the entire globe, and it offers data from 1901 to 2008. So it offers quite a lot of data, and it's used with data interpolated from the Climatic Research Unit from the University of East Anglica, which is very commonly used in other studies. And so the idea is to use these indices to identify trends in greening and climate using Ndvi, LAI, and SPEI in the cork and the holm oak dominated landscapes in Portugal. We would also like to quantify this relationship between SPEI and Ndvi in these areas, as well as identify the main abiotic and biotic factors that are influencing variation in Ndvi, like temperature, latitude, as well as species and land use. And so to do that, we're going to use 5 different land use types. We have agroforestry with cork oak, holm oak, as well as a mixture of the two. And then we have the cork and the holm forests, which have a lower intensity of land use. This is interesting because this can allow us to look at differences between species as well as differences between management types. We'll be using the average July and August values from 1984 to 2017. So we would like to look at the long-term trends. And we're using these dry season months because cork, oak, and Ndvi tends to be stable throughout the year, but their herbaceous vegetation really varies. So we want to account for the seasonal variation. And also July and August is the period where the spectral influence of the herbaceous understory is lowest. So we can really look at what's going on in the greening of our oak canopies. We are using a long time series, and so we're using Landsat 5 and 7. 5 only goes until, I believe, January 2013, and Landsat 7 only begins in 1999. So using this equation I found in Obard et al., I will be using this equation to do calibrations in the years that are overlapping for the data that we take for Landsat 5 and 7. And then I did stratified random sampling to select 1,000 sampling points per land use type so that we can calculate trends using those points. And then with those points, we took all of the years, we brought them into R, and then I ran a linear model with Ndvi and time. These are preliminary results. And so what we can see here, these are for the agroforestry land uses. And you can see that cork agroforestry is experiencing a higher decrease in the Ndvi trends. And you see this gradient between the cork, the mixed, and the holm oak, which is experiencing less of a decrease in their Ndvi trends for agroforestry. And here, you can also see the trends in the forest land uses. And here you can also see that cork is experiencing more of a decrease than the holm oak. From here, we would, these are preliminary results. I'm still processing things in R, but the idea is I will be also running a linear model between SPEI and time to understand those trends. And then I will also be running models to look at the relationships between Ndvi and SPEI, such as short-term covariance, as well as the long-term influence of SPEI on Ndvi while incorporating those other variables that I mentioned. And then the idea is with these results, we're looking at the landscape level, and then we can start to focus in on areas that we see have negative trends and try to look at maybe the plot or individual level to better understand why those trends are occurring. This was not very long, but thank you for your attention.